Hey there, welcome back. So I wanted to dabble a little bit more into the extreme side of horror books. Uh, Breaking this down to three different not genres, but extremes that I wanted to try. Keep in mind, none of these are going to be too extreme, but category one being like mainstream, but with some more horror-ish elements to it, more extreme horror topics touched upon. Category two, this is a disturbing subject matter, but the book itself isn't really extreme horror. And category three, a legit extreme horror book, just to see if it's a genre that I want to pursue in the future. So I found this video about, I don't know how long ago, but it is like, these are mainstream books. They're very popular, very widespread. General population enjoys it, but they have some elements that are veering towards extreme horror. And from this recommendation video, I got Those Across the River. Please hold. Been a while since I read it. Yes, Those Across the River. Keeping in mind, this recommendation list also had like Mexican Gothic on it. So, like, I read Mexican Gothic. I wouldn't even I guess there's one weird element that ventured onto mildly different, disturbing, gross if it had leaned more into it, but honestly, I wasn't expecting too much for this recommendation. In terms of extreme horror, I expected it to still be a good book. It was on my TBR for a reason. Category two, the more God, what the hell am I reading? Why did someone write this subject matter? Obviously, Tender is the Flesh. I needed no recommendation. That book went on it for its place in this category. Like, my God, we'll get into the book if you haven't heard of it, but why was this written? It's apparently good. I read it. And category three, an extreme horror book that no one can argue with me. Well, they probably will because it's the internet, but this is an example of an extreme horror book. It's a popular extreme horror book. We went with The Girl Next Door, Jack Ketchum. We'll get to it in a second. So the first one I read, it was a couple months ago now, was Those Across the River. Now, as I expected, I would not classify this as an extreme horror book. I would classify it as a good book, though. This is a man and his wife have moved to a town. He's inherited a house, was told, do not live in this town, do not go to this house, do not live in this house, just sell it, make some money, and go. He decided to ignore this request and information and warning. And he's gone there to write a book about an ancestor of his from the community who was a plantation owner and was killed during a slave riot during the time when it had, I think, become illegal and the slaves had been released. So it does have some topics that are touched upon which veer on extreme, can be triggering in terms of slavery. There's rape, I'm deciding whether or not it was graphic. I guess it probably does lean more on the graphic side than not. It's not exactly fade to black, so we'll say sure, but it could have been much worse. It could have been very disturbing. There was also a lynching scene. I'm not going to comment on whether any of these topics was handled tastefully. That is not something I feel comfortable giving my opinion on. This is an old school horror book monster feature, just with modern writing and character work and plot and pacing. And I adored this book. 5 stars. I don't think it's a spoiler to mention that there's werewolves because, come on, look at this cover. Is there anything else I want to say? Oh, yes, God, yes, there's 2 things I need to talk about. This book takes place post, I think, World War I, in the middle of the Depression. The N-word is used so frequently. It's like not every page is an exaggeration, but it is used an awful lot. So go in with that in mind, just the time period. They took advantage of the words that were used during that time period. And there is a small issue with the main female character. Well, I guess she's the main, sure. The wife of the main character. I was fearful that she would just be an over-sexualized character. There for that reason. No, she is wonderful. She is well realized. She and her husband have a great relationship. There's a backstory to them. There's a very sexual element. They have a healthy romance life and marriage. not over sexualized. She's her own character. She's not flat. She has depth. I greatly appreciate this book. I highly recommend this book. Was this an extreme horror book? No. While I'm in this category, let's talk about some very quick ones that I have read in the past. The Troop was not really for me, 3 stars, but I would classify this as closer to a mainstream book with extreme horror elements than Those Across the River. So with The Troop, a group of kids, like scouts, like Boy Scouts, are trapped on an island, and with their camp scout leader, Patient Zero comes, infects them, hunger, body horror, that kind of stuff. I didn't like the characters, but I normally don't like children protagonists POVs, so that's a me thing. I would have rather focused more on Patient Zero, what he had, why he escaped, how the town responded to this incident. There were little clips and elements touched upon that I wanted explored. Instead, we were focusing on these children, rightfully so, that's the story, and the body horror elements that happened. Yeah, 3 stars, but not for any of the gruesome stuff. Oh, animal violence. There is a gruesome animal violence scene that pissed me off. Very well written. Extremely well written. Then you have The Ruins, a personal favorite, though I am very biased because I watched the movie and it was like one of my first horror movies that I really remember loving and watching. It really sucks, so it's nostalgia base, but I just really enjoyed that, so it lended to a love of the book as well. But the book is very beloved. There's a lot of body horror. Everyone says really unlikable, stupid characters, and yeah, they make some stupid decisions to get them in the situation. But I liked the characters. I feel I need to reread this book because liking the characters is not a common viewpoint that people have after reading this book, and now I really need to reread it. But I did enjoy the characters. I enjoyed their relationships. I enjoyed their friendships. I was worried for them. I wanted them all to survive. And like I said, lots of graphic body horror in this book. But still nothing that I would classify as an extreme, but mainstream with extreme-ish elements sprinkled in. Now, going into the second one. This category of an extreme topic, if not extreme horror, but the topic was disturbing, I have only read the one book that I read for this little video, and that is Tender as the Flesh. My God, I need someone to check on this author to make sure that they are okay and they don't need help. If anyone needs a book to push them towards like veganism, no, not even vegetarian, full-on veganism, this is the book to do it. This book is all animal products have suddenly been tainted by a virus that makes it no longer edible. So people switch to a special meat. They raise and breed humans to eat. So replace every documentary you have ever seen that involves like cows, pigs, chickens, anything like that. Replace their industry with humans and have this world explored and described to you in such clinical fashion that it just put a cold shiver down my spine the entire time. The first half of this book is a full 5 stars, no exception. The world building, how they explain and explore everything. And you might think, hey Jessica, why are they going to this extreme? Why is cannibalism so accepted? Why didn't everyone just switch to veganism when animal products became inedible? That is mentioned in the book, saying that doctors and the government had said that without the meat, you can't live a full life. It's like touched upon, and there is an element of, is the government lying to us? Is this really true? Did this virus actually exist, or is this a way of controlling overpopulation? Is this fake news? Is it real? Who do you know? Who do you trust? Why are these animals affected, but say mosquitoes aren't, or the birds, or are the birds affected? There are people who walk around with umbrellas because they think even like bird poop would be enough to kill them. They don't know. And this has just been accepted as fact. Like, we need meat to survive, so this is what we have to do. It is so gruesome, so disturbing. Veal is still a thing in this world. Let's put it that way. I was disturbed during the first half of this book, and I want to give this book 5 stars for that, but I can't, because the second half of this book lost me. You can guess where it goes, I think, and if you know my reading taste and what I appreciate and what I don't. I did not appreciate where the plot of this book went. I would have preferred literally anything else. I didn't really want, like, dystopian overthrow the governments. Hey, wake up, people, don't believe the fake news. I didn't necessarily want, oh, the government was actually telling the truth and there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. I didn't necessarily want any of those options, but I didn't really want where the plot went. And because of that, I have to give it like a 3 or 4 star, I guess leaning closer to a 4. Still really happy I read this book. My cousin is a vegan, so I am honestly just considering slowly making the switch to at least vegetarian or partly vegetarian. And this book has no small part in it. It has a medium-sized part to that, questioning of my morals and values and ethics. I'm not even lying. Not even a little bit. I'm considering it. The last book is my extreme horror book that I read, and that was Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door. I feel like I should be on a government watch list after downloading this book. I had to do the Audible because I knew the topic matter of it. I could never read it with my eyes. I would close the pages. I would skip over it. I'm like, no, unless I was scared for the Audible that I would want to take it out or plug my ears. So I didn't, for the record. And I probably could have, no, I wouldn't have read this with my eyes. I would have skipped pages. This book, I have so many mixed feelings for. On Goodreads, it is not rated by me. I couldn't decide between a 5 star and a 1 star, but quite honestly, it is a 5-star book. This is a 5-star book. It is 5 stars for the writing and the execution of this horrible, terrible story. But I couldn't give it any rating because really I should have DNF'd it. I should have been like, this is too much cruelty for me to enjoy is the wrong word, to participate in, to listen to read in my spare time. I shouldn't have read this book. This is extreme child abuse in this book, and it is based on a true story. However dramatized, but honestly, it really follows the case in terms of the abuse that happened to this little girl very accurately. If anything, I don't want to say you get a happier ending, but the real life case honestly was worse, not just because it actually happened. And if I could say this book was just torture porn, then I would give it a 1 star and be done with it. But it's not. It is a 5-star book because it's not just that. There is so much that it reminds me of in terms of compliance to authority. There's the prison experiments. There's whatever guys with the electric shock case. Anywho, how you are in the viewpoint of this neighborhood boy. He's not participating in the abuse of his neighbor, but he's not stopping it. He's not telling anyone. And it's for no reason this woman has decided the little girl in her care deserves to be tortured. And because she's the adult, the other kids think they're not doing wrong. They think that adults have children's best intent and well-being in mind, and she doesn't. And they don't understand that. They don't understand the consequences, maybe is the best way to say it, or they feel justified in what they're doing. And it's so heartbreaking. Like, I almost recommend people read this book to see how impressionable kids can be and how they can get themselves worked up and fall into these kind of traps when there's some charismatic or some friendly, some member of authority that they trust, egging them on and pushing them towards it. or not telling them to stop, or not telling what they're doing is wrong, and just think, well, they said it was okay and they're an adult, so it must be okay. This is just normal. But at the same time, I don't recommend anyone read this book. Jack Ketchum's writing is fantastic. I will be reading more from him, even though I probably shouldn't. This has been my exploration into extreme horror, from not extreme to extreme-ish. I think the last one there, no one really could disagree that it's at least touching on extreme. I do have a couple books that I have in mind. There's one here, Survivor, that I currently own, and I will be reading it in the next upcoming months. There are these three here that I'm very interested in, and I don't know of any more like Tender as the Flesh, where it's a disturbing topic, but not gratuitous, I guess would be the best way to describe it. So let me know what you think, where I should go from here, just dabbling in more extreme horror books. I will talk to you later.